Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the International Federation for Medical and Biological Engineering's Clinical Engineering Division's 8 out of 11 webinar series, with this webinar addressing health technology regulation challenges. My name is Peter Granger from Ireland, and I'm one of the moderators, and you will meet the second webinar moderator, Ashanafi from Ethiopia, a little later. The credentials of the speakers, Stefano from Italy, Lorena from Mexico, and Jim from the US are presented alongside their names. Next slide. Stefano is going to present a perspective on HT regulation in Europe, Lorena a perspective on HT regulation in Mexico, and Jim will give an overview of harmonization of global HT regulation. Next. The preview circulated 2 weeks ago goes on to introduce clinical engineering and health technology definitions, inclusive of health technologies and medical device regulation, and what is the IMDRF. Next. We have also provided a list of 33 regulation reference resources, and will be adding to this list throughout this webinar and after. Next. And finally, the outline has stated the clinical engineering and health technology management leadership principles. For example, innovation, people-centric, teamwork, adaptive decision-making, communication skills, etc. Thank you for listening to this webinar overview, which was circulated in conjunction with the webinar advertisement. The webinar may extend an extra 15 minutes in order to allow for adequate question and discussion time. And if during the webinar you could write your questions in the Q&A section down at the bottom of the screen in between participants and chat, that would be most appreciated. Next. So now I will present 3 slides on what are the aims of the CED regulation project. The first aim is to get involved in regulation and the regulatory process. The International Medical Device Regulators Forum, IMDRF, is a voluntary group of medical device regulators from around the world who have come together to build on the strong foundational work of the Global Harmonized Task Force on Medical Devices. It aims to accelerate international medical device regulatory harmonization and convergence. In my opinion, a significant work item is being coordinated by Captain Scott Colburn of the USA. The work is titled Standards, Improving the Quality of International Medical Device Standards for Regulatory Use. The purpose of this work item is to identify and explore possibilities to improve the process of developing international standards used for regulatory purposes in the medical technology domain. The purpose speaks for itself, and it allows for a gap analysis, so it creates opportunities where none exist, or improvements such as that may be required in relation to regulation and/or standards. The second aim is to get involved in the development of standards. Next. The second aim is to get involved in the development of standards and the standards process. Here, the ISO Technical Committee 210, titled Quality Management and Corresponding General Aspects for Medical Devices, have some work items that directly pertain to medical equipment post-manufacture and are very pertinent to the clinical engineers working in each healthcare system. There are 2 items. The first work item being the life cycle aspects of medical devices. So, development, refurbishment, repair, reuse of parts, end-of-life aspects, decommissioning of equipment, etc., are all to be dealt with within this standard. The second is an item led by Ms. Jakob of Malaysia, who's convening Working Group 7, and the standard is titled Medical Device Maintenance Engineering. I'm happy to announce that the chairperson of the CED and its Regulation Committee have written to the Secretariats and conveners of both above standards and also the IMDRF seeking active participation. Next. The third aim of the Regulation Committee is to collate the existing body of references to regulation from around the globe pertaining to the role of clinical engineer. So, not actually medical devices, but where clinical engineers play a role. And the third aim collates an existing body, and so, to do so, develops a questionnaire to collate regulatory information. It also develops networks and linkages with key regulation organizations and bodies, and it's going to catalogue clinical engineering experts who already contribute to regulation and development. And the fourth and final aim is to draft a white paper on regulation, detailing analysis and recommendations, inclusive of strategic ways forward, and present to the CED of the IFMBE for consideration and future work. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And now I hand you over to our second webinar moderator, Mr. Ashanafi Hussein from Ethiopia, who is chairperson of the IFMBE Working Group on Africa Activities.
Thank you, Peter. Hello, everyone. I'm here working as a co-moderator as well as presenting on health technology regulation in Africa. Next. So the health regulation in Africa, it's been a problem for a long time due to a long process of registering products, doing in pre-marketing surveillance and post-marketing surveillance. And these activities are not very strong. It's because of lack of laboratories and lack of personnel. Most of the regulatory organizations in Africa follow the SRA, the Stringent Regulatory Authorities approval of Europe, FDA, and WHO to accept automatically as a product. This has been done as an activity before COVID has emerged. And during COVID, this problem has escalated, and some reports and studies showing that there are negative impacts on safety, quality, and efficacy of the product due to the introduction of many of products without passing the regulatory scheme, and this has been a problem during COVID. So we propose to have a very strong regulatory activity, local regulatory organizations with laboratories and personnel, and the clinical engineers around the world and in Africa help us to come up with a fast-track method and regulatory scheme to be done in Africa to come up with emergency activities. And we also recommend harmonization of regulatory activities in the world, including Africa. So with this, we can just come up and with a proposed solution for Africa. And with this, I finish my presentation. Thank you very much. And as a co-moderator, I will invite Stefano to present the regulatory activities of HT in Europe. So the floor is yours, Stefano. Thank you very much.